Now we begin carving the neck. And the first step is I'm going to use this microplane, and I'm going to carve a channel in here down to my final thickness. I want it to be 23 millimeters here, but I'm gonna carve this down to probably 24 millimeters thick from the fretboard to the bottom of the neck. And then I'll do the same here, and the final thickness here is 21 millimeters, and I will probably carve this down to 22. And then what that does is it gives you a reference of the two depths, and then you carve away down to that. So let's get started. I finished the back. I brought it down to about 24 millimeters, and the front we're at 23.8 right there on that side, and right here in the same spot we are 24.2. So come down a little bit more. There's right at 24. This is 23.8. I want to come down to 22, so I can afford to bring a little bit more. Come down a little bit more. And then when I get this, and I'm pretty close, then I can start working on where the headstock, where the volute is, carving this away, and then start rounding this over, bringing this down to where it matches these depths. And then there's a lot of meat to come off the bone up here. So time to get started. I'm gonna start up here on the headstock, the volute, and start rounding this over. And I'm using a Nicholson number 49 rasp. It's a great tool. And I've marked a little circle right here where I want to carve to. And now I'm going to use a spoke shave. I've already started here a little bit. Let's start taking some wood off. And then I can move to this rasp again. And occasionally, you'll work up a bit of a thirst. It's time for a little Kool-Aid. So you can see I'm making some headway here. I'm getting close. I still got a long way to go, but I'm sure you see the idea now. You carve until you get to that depth and until you get to this depth down here. So I'll keep whittling away. So you can see that channel that I carved right there is just about gone. Now down here is another story. This still has a ways to go, but I'll bring this down to depth as I carve the heel over here. So the next thing that I'm going to do is work a little bit here on this volute. So I've got a small little rounded file. I'm just going to work real slow and try to get a nice crisp edge right here on this. A nice transition. Because if you remember, this piece right here is a piece of veneer to cover that scarf joint. So now just a little fine tuning. Just a quick look at all the tools that I'm using to carve the neck, and a look at the mess that it's making. For probably 15 years, I've had this jet bandsaw, and I put a 6-inch riser on it. I've upgraded the tires on it, and it's been a good saw, but the biggest issue I've had with it is when I've tried to resaw, I've just never been able to account for the drift. I've never been able to resaw big pieces of wood. So I've added this bad boy to my arsenal. I just put this together late yesterday afternoon and this morning. It's the Laguna 1412, and I bought a 3/4 inch resaw blade, and I'm really excited about this. And I bought the lamp that comes with it also. So this is going to be fun, having this in my arsenal. And my original plan was to sell the jet, but then I got to thinking, why not just keep the jet, and just leave a small, like a 1/4 inch blade on it, and use it for when I'm making small cuts or anything with a curve, anything that's not just a dead straight cut, and then use this to resaw and to, like when I'm cutting the scarf joint on a neck. So decided to keep this and to make use of both of these. I've done quite a bit of carving on the neck here, but I haven't addressed the heel block. There's a lot of wood that's got to come off here. So I'm gonna get started on this a little bit. I'm gonna start with a rasp. see if this will work. I believe this is called a microplane. It's a lot more aggressive than that Nicholson rasp that I was using. So let's try this for a minute and see if we can. When I'm carving this, I've traced out the heel cap, and then I've traced lines from the heel cap down to where it joins where it meets up with the fretboard. And that's the lines that I will carve to on both sides. Well, I've decided that these rasps, I'm going to use them to fine tune, but I've got a lot of wood that I need to remove. So I'm going to use a drill with a sanding drum on it. This is just to remove a lot of this excess wood here. So I've gotten a lot of work done here. I still have this gouge that I've got to round over, which means I'm too thick back here. But now I'm gonna take this little file and just make sure I get everything down to the fretboard. Now trying to bring it to this back line that I have here, which should level it out with the fretboard down here. This is where you gotta be careful. You can get excited and get carried away and make a fatal mistake here if you're not careful. This is starting to look like a guitar neck. You can see I still got a lot more to carve. But I took a minute and went and measured I've got a Martin HD28, and I really like the way the neck feels. And I want to try and replicate that. And I've got this, I don't know what this is called, but it replicates shapes, and that's the shape of the Martin neck, and I'm getting close. But then I checked with a depth gauge, or calipers, I mean, how thick the neck is on the Martin, and it's 22.3 on the first fret and 24.8. And then I checked these, and I didn't write them down, but I'm about 2 millimeters still higher than where I need to be. So even though this is starting to form and look like a neck, and obviously I have a ways to go right here, I still have a lot of wood to take off of here, but I've got to be careful that I don't get it too thin. So from this point on, I'm not going to be as aggressive. I'm going to go pretty cautiously as I try to get this neck down to the proper dimensions. So I've got the neck down to the final dimensions. The heel cap, I like that real sharp look, that sharp point. It's straight coming down the shoulders of the tenon. I'm straight all the way across. I put a straight edge on it, and that's flat. I'm flush with the fretboard. The volute is nothing fancy. I don't know how to make these nice fancy volutes, so I just rounded everything over, and I've done an initial sanding on the back and the sides. So it's at final shape. The next step is just to start sanding. I've got some, let's see, I'm gonna start with some, I just put some 80 grit on here, and I'm gonna sand 150, 120, 220, and 320. And then I will start working on the frets, flattening them first, then crowning them, and then filing off these little edges here. And then the neck will be completed. Now that this is all sanded, the sides all the way down up to 320, including the headstock, and that is a nice smooth finish. This will be pretty. So now I'm gonna start crowning or leveling the frets. And what you do is you take a magic marker, you come in and you put a mark on each one of the frets. Then I'll come in with, this is a piece of wood that I have flattened and glued some sandpaper to. Then I'll come across and you can check your progress by looking at the Sharpie marks that you've put on here. Once you've sanded those all away, then you'll know you've leveled them. Then you'll come back in and put a crown on the frets. So I leveled out the frets, and in doing so, of course, it makes them a flat top fret, and we need them to be round. So what I'm going to do, I have this crowning file. It's got a concave in it, and then I will see, it's still a little flat right there. When you round over these frets, you always have these little jagged ends over here, and those have got to be smoothed out. So one thing that the first step is I've made this block a long time ago that's got a file that I epoxied in here, and I can take and run it down the fretboard like this. And that puts a little bit of that angle on here and takes some of those burrs off of it. And then another thing, you can come in here with this file that I was using earlier to round everything over, and just hit those. This one needs a bad little burr on it right there. And then you can take some sandpaper and just keep working it and keep running your hands up and down, and anywhere you feel a jagged edge, you gotta address it. You can't play guitar and risk cutting your fingers at the same time. So I've still got a lot of work to do from right about here all the way down. But when that's done, then the neck is completed.